Thank you for joining today's webinar, How to Support Peer-Led Initiatives. We had some minor technical difficulties getting started, so our apologies for being a couple minutes late. I hope everybody is surviving the heat and has found a nice, cool, air-conditioned space for the next 90 minutes or so. Since we're past time, I'm just going to jump right into it. I would like to begin by acknowledging that today's webinar is broadcast on the unceded, traditional, and ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. I would also like to quickly credit our previous webinar presenters, Jenny Morgan and Vanessa Bursick, for the slides you see in front of you. My name is Amelia Moretti. I'm the Policy Director at the Canadian Mental Health Association, BC Division, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Lene Silva.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lene, and I am one of the peers working on this project. I am part of CMHA BC's policy division. I have been a heroin addict for about 16 years, so I come with that perception, that idea, and I've been very fortunate to be a part of this program right from the very beginning and have been able to help shape this and bring my experience and lived experience to this project. So thank you all for having me.
Thanks, Lene. We'll be your host for the next 90 minutes or so. To start us off, I would like to point out a few features of the technology we're using and quickly run through the agenda. First of all, there are two options for sound. You can listen with your computer's audio or dial in by telephone. If you find that you're having difficulties with one audio option, please just consider switching to the other at any point. A friendly tip, if you choose the telephone option, either use a landline if you happen to have access to one, or turn off the output on your computer speakers to prevent that awful screeching feedback noise we're all familiar with. Second, we'll be recording today's session and posting the video online at caibc.ca/OD-webinar and distributing it by email the following week. A copy of the PowerPoint slides will be included in that email as well, and we've included a PDF copy in the handout section for you to download at any point during today's broadcast. Third, after 25-minute presentations by BEAP, Business Engagement Ambassadors Project, and the Peer2Peer Project, there will be ample opportunity for audience members to ask questions. Please type your questions into the question section of your panel to the right. Lene will collect them throughout the webinar and she'll read them out to the presenters during the Q&A period in the order she receives them. Hence, the sooner you send a question, the better, the higher the likelihood it will be answered. If you would like to address your question to a specific presenter, please make a note of this in your submission, either their name or their project. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible before the end of the webinar. So before I jump in to introducing our presenters, I would like to share a bit about the ODPrep Knowledge Exchange webinar series, specifically our principles, process, and outcomes. Today's webinar is the first installment of a 7-part series called Overdose Prevention and Response Essential Practices, or ODPrep for short. The project began February 2020. In those early days before the pandemic, staff from the Community Action Initiative, Public Health Association of BC, and Canadian Mental Health Association BC Division came together to respond to a request from the community action teams, or CATs, around the province, specifically for knowledge exchange. At the time, we thought this would include things like site visits at overdose prevention sites and in-person dialogue events, but like everyone else, we had to first pause, then pivot. Months later, we convened our peer advisory group and decided on a different path, one that led us here today. You may all be familiar with the terms best practice or wise practice. We found these terms didn't fit the times or what we were called on to do. Amidst 2 public health emergencies, overdose and poisoning response and prevention are not about what we should do, but what we have to do, what is essential to do to save lives. Hence, our very first pivot was our name. Next, we had to decide what essential practices are. BC is a large and diverse province, and there's no one population affected by overdose and drug poisoning. We had to decide on key principles that could encompass all of that diversity. Our peer advisory group landed on 4 key principles. The first of which is peer partnerships, ensuring the voices and actions of people who use or use drugs are the driving force of change. The second is grassroots. The practice has to come from community members taking action. The needs, actions, outcomes, everything were ground up, not top down. The third is local networks. Peer groups, community action teams, organizations, health authorities, municipalities, whoever was involved, shared power and worked together as equal partners. Lastly, adaptable. The practice could be transferred from urban areas to rural areas or vice versa, be scaled up or down depending on resources, or augmented to meet diverse cultural or community needs. Now that we had our definition of essential practices, we needed to find peer groups and community-based organizations who developed and led them. We opened a call for submissions and received more than anticipated from across the province. We then faced the difficult task of deciding who to feature on our webinar series and whose resources to share with our networks. To do this, we facilitated a series of 6 dialogue sessions open to peers and allied service providers to review, discuss, and make decisions. Together, we selected the groups and identified important themes. The ODPrep team then met with the selected groups to learn more about their organizations and practices and co-develop the webinars that are now part of our lineup. Our 7-part series covers a range of topics, including brain injury after overdose, safer washrooms and episodic OPS, low barrier shelters, campus drug testing, safer supply, and more. We have presenters from every region of the province who speak from the powerful authority of their lived and living experience of substance use. We are so proud to be here today broadcasting our first webinar. We started with the first and foremost essential practice, supporting PeerLed Initiatives. The importance of this topic cannot be undervalued, and we're incredibly pleased to be joined by members of BEAP and the Peer2Peer Project. BEAP, developed by Drug War Survivors Abbotsford in partnership with Matsqui-Abbotsford Impact Society, aims to enhance the cleanliness, safety, and harmony of their communities and provide meaningful opportunities for members of the street community to contribute to something positive in a way that will be recognized and appreciated. Since the summer of 2018, members have been meeting with the City of Abbotsford, Fraser Health Authority, homeowners, businesses, and business associations within Abbotsford to make this happen. The Peer2Peer Project, led by the BC Centre for Disease Control, Canadian Institute for Substance Use Research, Solid Outreach, and RainCity Housing, aims to identify, implement, and evaluate peer-led support initiatives for peers or experiential workers in overdose response settings. The core tenet of their work is that experiential workers, or peer workers with lived and living experience, are important service providers that play a crucial role in supporting individuals who use substances and deserve access to occupational mental health supports similar to those provided to other healthcare providers and first responders. I'll now hand things over to our first presenters.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
A little bit about myself. Well, I am adopted and I have been in Abbotsford for 45 years. I have 3 sons, 2 grandchildren. I'm homeless.
And I don't know, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, my name is Shawn, and I have been involved with the BEAP program for approximately approximately 2.5 years.
Can you tell me what brought you to BEAP?
Pete.
Pete?
Okay, my friend Pete brought me to BEAP when it first started. This is the original picture of it. I look great too, see? But anyhow, having said and done all that, when I first started doing BEAP though for the money really, but because on the streets I ended up, going through all those parks anyway. So to clean up parks, do this and that. I thought, well, yeah, sure, I can get paid for it. But as time went by, I kind of got used to now actually I can get up and I'm actually doing a job. So it's a pick me up too while you're at it. And then after a while, you start meeting all these people. It's like, hey, I know you. I don't know. Now it's more big crowd and family.
What motivates you to clean up, be one of those people who's cleaning up everywhere you go?
I want to give back to the community what I've taken from the people I've heard over the years. And, I don't know, it's just, I can't say sorry to them because they're not here now.
So tell me why you're involved with BEAP.
I just want to give back a little bit to the homeless and to the community that has helped me recover from drugs. I came from a very abusive childhood. I was physically, sexually, emotionally abused. I ran away from that home when I was 11 years old, lived on the streets of Toronto. It was rough. I became a teenage prostitute because I figured it didn't really matter what happened to my body after everything that had been done to it. This went on for, I guess, till I was 14 or 15. I ate out of dumpsters. I slept behind dumpsters. And then I'm going to start to cry. And then one day, some kind Christian people came up to me and handed me a hot bowl of soup and some fruit and showed me a little bit of their heart, and that someone could love me, someone I didn't even know.
In your experience, do those who use substances and live on the street care about things in the community?
I think a lot of them I'd have to say don't, but I myself do. I try to keep it as good as I can, and I try to let the community see me as a member of the community, which I have been for, like I said, 45 years.
How would you say BEAP benefits the community?
It greatly benefits the community. For number one, for the needles. The needles. There's not too many people out there that will pick up a needle, let alone dispose of it properly. So that's extremely beneficial for the community. And other than that, the garbage. There's certain garbage like biohazards, like say feces and what else would there? There'd be feces. There'd be broken glass. Dangerous to the public that the public would be kind of skeptical about picking up. So that's where we come in, and we've been trained, and we know how to properly pick up and dispose of these items.
What is getting paid by BEAP done for you?
So help me for having extra money in my pocket for expensive to this time coronavirus, to go to community, even use the back and you have to buy coffee or something. That was beautiful help. And the time you opened the door, everybody was shut down. So you opened the door, give us food and hope.
What has getting paid by BEAP done for you?
Actually, that's been a good thing. Like, all of a sudden, panhandling's out now. And also, it's like, kind of like getting a paycheck. It's like, okay, for all I could keep doing this.
Why are you involved in BEAP?
Number one, I feel like I'm actually doing something useful with my life. Like I've been farting around, wasting my time, wasting my life for the past since I lost my fiance about 20 years ago.
Why are you involved with BEAP?
Why? That's I believe in Lord Jesus Christ as a Christianity. We are connected. I look at it this way. Why we are here. We have something to each other. We belong to each other. We are connected.
Has being involved in BEAP helped change things in your life?
Most definitely. When I help people, for instance, like giving harm reduction, if they're sick, I give them what I could provide. I'm that kind of person now, and I believe in change, you know, like, change is in all of us.
So we'll start by kind of doing what we do at our regular meetings that we have every Wednesday from 10 to noon, which is we tell everybody our name, and then we usually answer kind of a silly question that helps to get people to get to know each other, because very often we have new people at the group, and it's nice to have a way to get to know each other. So the question that we went with today is, if you had a if you wrote a self-help book, what would it be called? So Brittany, you want to start?
Hi, I'm Brittany. I am the program coordinator for Abbotsford Drug War Survivors, and I help with coordinating BEAP. If I wrote a self-help book, I think it would be called Everything is Fucked.
Hi, my name is Peter. I'm part of BEAP and Drug Wars. If I had a self-help book, it would be called Taking Initiative.
Taking Initiative.
I'm Jim, BEAP, Drug War Survivors, Selfhelp book. Help me find my book.
I'm Brian. I'm an executive director and a counselor at Matsqui-Abbotsford Impact Society, and have been part of DWS since 2009 and help with BEAP. And if I had a self-help book, I'd probably just have a blank, no title, and then maybe you'd be interested and you would open it up, and maybe when you open the pages it would be blank too. Right.
Hi, my name is Doug. Member of DWS and BEAP. I guess if I was going to have a self-help book, it would be called "Don't Follow Me."
So we'll tell a little, and I hopefully someone will give us a sign of when we're supposed to. We have so much. We've been operating since 2018, and so there's lots of stories that we can tell. But just to give you a sense of how we got started, was that the city of Abbotsford had a lot of complaints from businesses about how their businesses were being impacted by people who were homeless in the community. And so they came to our DWS meeting, which is, at the time was like about 100 people that met once a week. And they said, well, we have this problem, is there anything we can do about it? And what people said is that a lot of people already had relationships with businesses in the community. A lot of people were already doing things to help the community. So really what the group wanted to do was not create something new, but just build on what already existed. And the group came up with the idea of BEAP as a name, and then two members started meeting with some folks from the city. The city provided some funding, and then eventually we got some other funding and started doing some cruise and cleanup. And we also had one of the OPS sites in the community was at the Abbotsford Hub, and they're right in the middle of a strip mall, and there were definitely a lot of problems going on. And I will let anyone who wants to talk about like what issues were they facing there, and how did BEAP help to solve some of that, what was going on.
Well, I guess there was a lot of people that were using illicit drugs, and they were on the street. They had no place safe to use it, and a lot of people were dying. And we had to figure out something to stop this, because every life's important to us. And that's where we opened up a safe consumption site, is what it's called. I worked there myself, and it was just a place where people that use drugs could come in, use safely, and have somebody watch over them. So if they did drop accidentally, then we could save them. We could narc them and bring them back. I've been there for about 4.5 years now, and I've got over 300 people I've saved personally myself, and it feels pretty good. I wake up in the morning and I can smile. I'm not such an ugly guy after all. but it's just made it so much better. It limited the amount of breaks that were on the street, and you know there were people all passed out around. You know, people, oh look at those people, right? At least it inspired people to come in, and it made a little social group. You know, they could come in, sit, chat, have somebody with not only there just to save their life, but actually pay attention to them and listen to their stories. And, you know, somebody cared. And in life, that's a really important thing to know that somebody actually cares about you, not just servicing you, but actually cares and will stop doing what they're doing and listen to what you have to say. It makes it, you know, give you the inside feeling of good, right? And that's what we're all about, man. You know, every one of us is important, and sometimes we get lost in the shuffle, and you know, we're all about breaking that up because everybody's important, man.
So yeah, you can, I guess we have gone on to the next scene. So we did, while we were doing that project, we got the whole group together because people wanted to create a brochure to try and get some of the businesses to kind of hire us to do work around their businesses. And so in that process, as a group, we came up with some of this stuff like the goals of BEAP, which you can see on the screen. I won't read them. You can go on to the next slide. And then we had to figure out how we work as a group, because a lot of folks had some challenges in terms of what they could do, if we were going to run a crew when we were doing it at the hub, for example. We were meant to do it on a regular basis, but not everyone could show up all the time for their shifts. Do you guys want to talk about how we dealt with that?
Okay, well, the way we dealt with it was that we sat as a group. We voted like with the hands up sort of thing, where everybody just puts in what they feel we could accomplish together and look at a different approach. And we just went by whoever would miss their shift, we would have somebody else that would come in and fill it for them. So that was a good idea, because then none of the shifts were missed, everything was getting done. But then Positive Living decided to change their name to something else, and then closed their doors. The COVID hit in, and then just changed it for everybody, even the homeless. But we're doing pretty good right now, because we're sticking to the group ideal. Like we're all, yeah, we just sit around and just vote on things, try to better get everybody's input and output.
I find that if we don't, a lot of people out in the public don't notice this because it's already cleaned up. But things get picked up and it's not noticed. But it's at the BEAP gang, and we go in there and do it, and it's all cleaned up. And if it's not done, every week you notice you put a piece of garbage in one spot. Next day another piece of garbage. Before you know it, you got a pile of garbage. And we haven't been noticed for that, what we do. Like they get up in the morning, walk through the park. Oh yeah, it's a beautiful day. Everything's clean. Well, guess who was there just before you got there?
And
we cover each other.
And with the voting thing, we decided as a group right from the beginning that we would do a consensus only model. So basically what that means is if one person says no, then we don't do something. And so really everyone has to agree about everything that we're doing. And it's only the folks from the street community, that was the term that we came up when we did our project, that folks liked. So that's basically how it works. I think a lot of people have looked at it and gone, oh, how does that work? Because like there's different people at every meeting. Like everyone could change everything at any time.
It's impossible, but it's not. It's, you know, it gives the people an opportunity to throw an idea out there. And a lot of the times, you know, we were all on the same page, but we just didn't know it until we had a chance to hear them. And then, yeah, everybody gets along with it, right? Nobody has to do anything that they don't want, because all they have to do is say no, and then the whole group doesn't do it, which is great, because then you never do anything that feels useless or, you know, unneeded, because, you know, you have 10 people all from different areas deciding on what to do. We used to do some good things. Especially when we got
so we keep it diverse so nobody else is left out or anything, you know, regardless of age, color, what you believe in religion, just get together and get it done. Right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much you do, just
All
as long as
around.
you're there and you're doing something, right? Everybody's got his place.
Well,
Which is awesome.
And what often happens, since I'm the executive director of the organization, is a lot of people bring their complaints about each other to me, or what's going on, and I just direct it back to the group,
Yeah.
or support people if they want to have something said, to figure out how to say it, or if, you know, sometimes I've been able to bring up some concerns that someone might have in a way that doesn't out them to everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's
it's good to have a mediator.
Next slide.
Well, basically like a mobile information resource service that
That's
for
right.
businesses and to understand what the homeless community is about.
That's right.
And I think, so, I mean, one of the things, there's a lot of outreach that happens in this too. So we're cleaning up, but you guys are also, like, there are always new people coming to Abbotsford.
Yeah, that's true.
Giving them the place to go and how to.
The big thing is, yeah, they always say, well, why can't we just get rid of them? Well, where are they gonna go?
Mhm.
But in between all those little lines that, you know, in between the lines, you find, like, what were you saying earlier?
Oh.
You know, like, from, oh, geez, I'm sorry, I forgot.
People in the parks that are unconnected, that.
Oh, and the new people coming in. Yeah, see, the problem is, we gotta deal with people we know and people we recognize that, oh, I saw you last month in this area. We direct them to, BEAP or any church or any place where they can clean themselves up, clean up, point them in the right direction.
And hot meal.
But then we get the new people, the knives come out, the anger comes out. They say, what are you doing in my park? They're like, whoa, 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 buddy. And then here's the badge, like, oh, I'm just cleaning up. You need any, you know, anything, any syringes, anything. That's what we do. We confront some people. And sometimes I've had to turn tail and go the other direction because I ran into the wrong crowd.
It's always a good icebreaker, you know, hey man, you need a water or you need some, you know, something to eat.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, you know, it breaks the ice and then, oh, wow, what do you mean? Giving me something free? Yeah, you know, and then you need anything? What do you mean, do I need anything? Nobody ever asked me that. That's always telling me where to go and what I need.
Yeah, I've done that.
Nobody ever asked me what I wanted.
And there have been situations where, like, we had a fire in one of the camps, and what the news reported was that nobody was injured, but actually people were injured. They just were hiding because they didn't want to get involved with the health system or whatever. But we were able to connect with them, go and get them what they would want, or get them connected with services that might work for them, based on where they're at. So
Yeah, a lot of people are in hiding because they don't want to have their camp noticed, and you know, because somebody finds out where you're living and they go in there and where you're not there and take your stuff. So people are in hiding because you have to protect your stuff. When you only got enough to fit in a bag, you know, you're pretty important. It's pretty important stuff. So you know, you can't leave your camp and go work for 8 hours and then come back because you won't have a camp anymore. So
and part of that we also do like cart watchers or tent watchers. Yeah. So not only do folks in BEAP get honorariums, but when they need somebody to watch their stuff while they're coming to a meeting or they're doing working on a crew, they have that.
Yeah, or they need a ride, or you know, just a hand, right? You know, it's what we're all about, helping out, giving a hand up, not a handout.
Okay, we're on to the next slide.
Let's see, I have to read. So we like we said, we have IDs that the city provided, so that when people are out cleaning up, if police ask them about something, or a citizen asks them about things, they can actually identify. How has that been important for you guys?
Well, that's coming in very handy.
Yeah.
I've actually had police come up and, what are you doing? And I said, and I produced, I forgot mine today. But I produced my BEAP badge with my picture. Yeah, one of those. And actually, oh, we've heard of you. And they're like, yeah, I'm just cleaning up the park. Because they're always curious. How come you're around like by yourself, like here or there?
Yeah.
It looks conspicuous. But,
yeah. What are you scoping out for, right?
Yeah, like scoping it out.
It needs to be cleaned, yeah.
And it's done, and all of a sudden, we know who each other are.
What about the honorariums?
Oh, that comes in handy.
Oh, yeah.
Probably all, instead of, finding whatever money you can find on the street,
The honorariums we get, we can also employ other people that are in the same situation we're in, and encourage them to be part of the program too, and reach out and explain that we'll try to make a difference and, get more into like the business sector area where they're mostly complaining, and then show them why we're doing what we're doing.
Gives you a
Not
sense
just
of value.
stereotype all the time.
Gives you a sense of value and, self-worth. And, it's, for a lot of us, we haven't been able to have work, get a job because, there's, you can't leave your place, right? But then it gives you a chance to get out there working, you build your self-confidence, and that's how I ended up getting my job at Positive Living, because, I was just out there doing stuff, and I was like, hey, I'm not an invalid, I can do certain things. And now I'm, been there for 4.5 years now and feel pretty good about myself. People know me, and hey, how's it going, Doug?
And some of our crews are set up so that the crew captains are able to give out honorariums. So they might go to a camp and it needs cleaning up, but they will employ the people who are in the camp to pay them to clean up their own space. And
awesome.
And then some of those people join BEAP or other things. So we're probably running short on time.
Yeah, so maybe we'll go to the next slide.
So we'll just go on. So like some of the more recent developments that have happened is during COVID times, like some of the camps have just grown a whole lot, and there's been garbage. And we worked for a long time. We talked for a long time about how are we going to clean up this garbage. The city made a connection with the Ministry of Transportation, and so we've started to be able to do some big cleanups. And we just did one yesterday. You guys want to talk about that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They put in a big metal bin there, and we had 25, probably 35 people working there. And we spent 2 hours and we cleaned up the whole bin. Like one of those big, huge bins got filled up with garbage in 2 hours. And, we had coffee and donuts to start. We worked for 2 hours, and then we had pizza and your honorarium. I mean, we felt great. Like, hey, we did a good thing. And you can look around and see, like 15 shopping carts full of garbage gone. And, yeah, it was great. It's really good to see everybody there.
The good thing is we have so many people come out that we have a lot of people with mobility issues or disabilities of some kind. So they really shouldn't. A lot of folks, or they're just getting old like me, so folks shouldn't really work. And the nice thing about having this many people come out is nobody feels pressure to push themselves too much.
Yeah, it's nice to do just a 2 hour work too, right?
And fill up a whole 48-foot, thing. That's really satisfying.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
And we've done that, I don't know, many times. We also partnered with the Abbotsford Police Department and some other organizations to do the rail line shut down completely.
That was my favorite.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about it a little?
Yeah. Tearing that apart, we got almost like 10 tons.
We got 23 metric tons or something, like 13 metric tons, which is like 23,000 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, we went right through the whole, like we all joined in. Every group, like everybody was now one unit, and just boom, and it was like, oh, I'd do that again.
Yeah.
Be careful out there. There's sharks out there. There's this and that. Just be careful and do your job, but be sure to pat yourself on the back after. That's what it should look like.
Yeah.
And a lot of people shared, like they took pictures with partners, the police department, all this kind of people never had who had never had a positive interaction with some of these other people. They had one.
Yeah, so it's nice that we have the police call us too, instead of just going and arresting somebody. They call us and we go down and we mediate for them. And a lot of the times these people don't have to go to jail. They just need to be helped out. And we move on, and then there's no problem. Less work for the police, less trouble for us. Everybody's happy. It's a plus.
We have had people who have wanted to contact us to move people along, and we make it really clear that's not what we're there for.
Yeah, we're not
So-
that kind of people. Yeah, we're here to help, not to push. Yeah.
And especially if there's, when people tell people, go anywhere but here, we don't do that. So
No,
We got a place for you to go.
yeah.
try to make the situation better, not worse.
That's right.
With me, it was a brochure I saw. It was it's time to make a stand. We got to get this done. It was under the bridge there, down behind the Walmart there. There was a creek full of carts there, and that used to be like an actual fish habitat down there. That I found out when I went to the library and read about it, and it made me just want to go down there and just do it myself, and I did it.
You did, awesome.
Yeah, I did. I went down there with my neighbor there, a fish gaff, and I pulled all the carts out, and he just dragged them all out. And it was done with just 2 people in a matter of 3 days at 3 hours a day. So it didn't take long. We didn't overexert ourselves. Plus, we got to meet everybody else that was homeless under there. And what do you know? They started doing the same thing too. They were just started hauling out all their garbage.
It's amazing.
Now there's a spot there where they can put all their garbage, and the city will come pick it up.
Share that before and after picture.
Yeah, but they got the video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a good job.
Yeah, it's amazing how much how people have changed. Just having people care and just wanting to help and just that's all that people need. It's just a little good feeling, right? Just a little bit of help, and it's inspiring because people that wouldn't do anything before jumping up and helping us out, waiting there for us to come. All right, let's go.
Yeah, they're looking forward to it.
Yeah, and looking forward to it.
Cleanup.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, and
So forth, right?
just one last thing that I would want to say is just we've moved as an organization from like engagement to empowerment to what we call power sharing to we're at a point now where what we're trying to do is trust people.
Yeah.
So that's how we're able to kind of just say the money is yours to deal with, and it's not, and it's a consensus, and we trust that you guys will be able to decide what to do.
A lot of people haven't been in a position where they've been trusted for years, right? The people look at them, oh, you can't trust them, they're all criminals, right? So what? Even criminals are good sometimes.
A lot more harm reduction.
Yeah.
I noticed that every community has 1 or 2 harm reduction people that will walk around.
Yeah.
So like everybody's taking an initiative to like help out.
Yeah, and there's other groups that have followed up.
Where before they wouldn't care.
Yeah, it was against the law to give out harm reduction.
But now they're branching up. They're starting on every block now, basically. It's just like
It's awesome.
everywhere.
Yeah,
But
it's awesome.
it's not what we're designed to do. We're designed for businesses and community support, right?
But it's neat how much other stuff come off of that, right? Yes.
It's got like a web, it just spreads out.
Yeah, like a tree.
Oh, yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
We're not contracted by the municipality.
We've been given the axe now,
That's it.
so.
We're out of time.
All right. Peace, man.
Vote on everything.
Thank you so much. I'll quickly run through the rest of the slides so everybody just has a quick minute to see some of the other material we didn't get a chance to cover today. There's just the one on the role community plays. A copy of the slides is in the handout section, so feel free to download it and then you can read a little bit more information about that particular component. There is also another handout available to you. It's a pamphlet about the PEEP program that has a bit more information and really fleshes out and provides details of what was shared today. I'm now going to turn the presentation over to the Peer2Peer Project.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us today. Just before we continue, I wanted to confirm that Sophie and Tracy are connected by audio now.
Yes. And there's Tracy.
And Tracy, say something.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. My name is Zara Mamdani, and I'm the project manager for the Peer2Peer Project based at the BC Centre for Disease Control. We've had some last-minute changes in our presenters, but my co-presenters today are Sophie McKenzie, our project assistant at BCCDC, and Tracy Scott, a peer worker at RainCity Housing in Maple Ridge. Thank you for this opportunity, everybody, and we'll just get started. Tracy?
Sophie. That one's for you, Tracy. I can take over if you'd like. Is it not supposed to be Sophie?
It's okay. Sophie, go ahead.
Okay, so we couldn't start off this presentation without acknowledging our awesome team. There are a lot of us based in Victoria, Vancouver, Maple Ridge, and Coquitlam. Our project is very much a joint team effort.
Tracy, we're on slide 3, overdose crisis in BC.
Okay. As you may know, illicit drug overdose is the leading cause of unintentional death in BC. In fact, the onset of COVID-19 has compounded the impact of the drug toxicity crisis for people who use substances. Since March 2020, when physical distancing measures were implemented, the number of drug toxicity deaths have been on the rise. In 2020, 1,724 overdose deaths were recorded, which is the highest ever recorded in a year in BC. And this year is even higher. Peer workers are often most affected by the overdose crisis. These are individuals who have lived experience with substance use and incorporate the lived experience into their professional work. Peer workers at the forefront of the overdose response activities in BC, they perform a variety of roles, including distribution of harm reduction supplies, peer witnessing of drug use, referrals to services such as housing agencies, advocacy, outreach work, overdose response, and research. The advent of COVID-19 has led to the reduced hours and closure of several overdose prevention services, and this further increased the importance of peer workers who are involved in the outreach and mobile overdose response. So working in overdose response settings can be really overwhelming and stressful, with lasting social, mental, and emotional impacts. Being a peer can be even more stressful because they don't face only the trauma of others, but they face oftentimes the same factors that affect people who use substances, such as stigma, low income, and lack of support. However, unlike a lot of other first responders, they lack organizational and mental health supports from their organizations. It's therefore important to implement supports and programs for peers in overdose response settings. The Peer2Peer Project, funded by Health Canada, is aimed at developing, implementing, and evaluating models and strategies to support peer workers who are working in BC overdose response environments. The project is being piloted at 2 organizations, RainCity Housing in the Lower Mainland and Solid Outreach in Victoria.
So to start off, we did some needs assessments, and to identify the needs of peer workers, we conducted focus groups with peer workers at our pilot sites, and we found that their needs could be categorized into 3 themes. These 3 themes then form the basis of our intervention model titled ROSE. The R stands for recognition of peer work, O stands for organizational support, and S stands for skill development. The E emphasizes that the resources are for everyone. Each component of the intervention consists of multiple strategies that have been implemented at the pilot sites. Under the recognition component, we developed a video featuring a day in the life of peer workers, and if we have time at the end of the presentation, we'll play the shorter version of that today. Photo IDs and business cards were also created for all peer workers to improve their credibility and recognition. Meet and greet events with other professionals is also in the pipeline, but we haven't been able to do that yet due to COVID. Under the organizational support component, we developed and implemented descriptions, job descriptions, contracts, and orientation guidelines. 2 roles were also created for Solid to provide peer-to-peer support and provide systems navigation. Furthermore, pulse oximeters were also provided to the peer workers to supplement their overdose response.
So under the skill development arm, peer workers were supported to attend multiple trainings, including first aid, mindfulness, and cultural competency. Further, multiple training resources were developed, such as how to respond to an overdose during COVID and how to use an oximeter. We have also developed online training modules tackling multiple peer worker leadership skills, including effective communication, peer debriefing skills, conflict resolution, organizational etiquette, and mental health awareness. So you may have seen this logo on resources, and this is the logo that was developed by our team for the ROSE model and the peer-to-peer project in general. And this logo was illustrated by a peer worker who used to work at Solid Outreach, Haley Wagner.
Next slide. Yeah. We recently conducted a one-year evaluation of our intervention by administering surveys to peer workers at the pilot sites. Compared to the baseline survey, which was conducted prior to the implementation of the role model in September 2019, more peer workers feel appreciated at work, which could potentially be due to increased recognition and awareness through our intervention. Also, peer workers are feeling more satisfied with their work and feel good about the people they are helping. Peer workers also feel more connected to the others and have trusting relationships with others, including their co-workers. And finally, less peer workers are reporting feeling stressed by the trauma of the people they support, and they are overall managing their workload much better. We also asked about each strategy of the roles model specifically, and the majority of the participants mentioned that the strategies were extremely effective. The top 4 strategies in terms of their effectiveness were photo IDs, the first aid and CPR training, distribution of the pulse oximeters, and the oximeter training. When the ROSE model is expanded to other sites, the implementation of these strategies should then be prioritized. Our results show that the ROSE model has been quite successful in meeting the needs of peer workers and supporting them in their otherwise very stressful roles. Next slide.
So the most important aspect of the peer-to-peer project is that it centers the voices of people with lived and living experience. And we believe this is what led to the success of the ROSE intervention at our pilot site. Our team consists of academic researchers as well as peer research assistants from the pilot site. And peers are involved in every decision and process of the project. We think it's super important to engage peer workers in harm reduction efforts, as well as any programming related to people who use substances, because peer worker-led programs have been shown to be successful in creating safe spaces for people who use substances. Further, by acting as role models for people who use substances, peers can help to reduce harmful health behaviors such as sharing substance use supplies and unsafe sex practices. Peer workers can also build connections and trust based on shared lived and living experience, which can in turn improve program accessibility. Most importantly, through meaningful peer engagement, we can help center the voices of people with lived and living experience, dignifying them as important decision makers and leading to the creation of relevant interventions, which can help save both time and cost.
So here are some tips for meaningful engagement of peer workers that we have learned through the peer-to-peer project. In our project, peer workers were involved right from the onset of the project and are part of the decision-making team. Basically, they're considered part of the core research team. Peer workers were involved in data collection, such as facilitation of focus groups to identify needs of peer workers at their respective sites. Peer workers were also the ones that identified the key themes that emerged from the data, and they were involved in the development of the ROSE model. Furthermore, all resources developed by the project were developed jointly with the peer workers, centering the voices of the people with lived and living experience. And most importantly, peer workers were paid for their engagement. Basically, we followed the principle, nothing about me without me. And this philosophy has been the reason for our success.
Peer engagement is important so as to design and implement relevant interventions and improve the acceptability and accessibility of harm reduction programs. Involvement of peer workers will ensure success of harm reduction initiatives because we are able to connect with and are trusted by people who use substances. Meaningful engagement of peer workers means involving peer workers in all aspects of your project, including the decision making. It means centering the voices of people with lived or living experience. The ROSE model shows much promise in supporting peer workers in overdose response environments, and there is a need to tailor and implement these strategies across all organizations in BC. Thank you.
And before we go, if we have time, I would love to show you the shorter version of the Peer Life video. So I'll let Amelia and Lene decide if we have time to do that. Yes, looks like we're doing it. Okay, let's introduce the video. Okay, good. So I was just saying this video was created and it features a day in the life of 2 peer workers. The song in this video was actually written by Tracy and her friend Kat, and they're the ones who perform it as well. And the point of this video was to create awareness about the important work done by peer workers and to highlight some of the challenges peer workers face in their roles. So we'll go ahead and play it now.
Hey, baby girl. I love you. Hey, guys. Hey, good. Yeah. My name is Denise Edwards, and I'm known as Grandma Coquitlam, Ma, Mom, or Grandma. I answer to all of them, and I'm proud to be a peer worker.
I became a peer worker just over 3 years ago. As a person, you know, that spent his life in prison and spent his life doing drugs, you know, I thought, well, what am I going to do for employment? Well, no one's going to hire me, and then this guy wants to hire me, and I said, well, what do you do? He said, oh, we work with street people. And I thought, well, that's something I really know.
I'm a functioning drug addict, and I look around and I see my friends and even some of my family that have passed away and have overdosed and have caught different diseases, and I want to help. I've saved 72 lives up to date. I haven't lost one yet, and I don't plan on it.
Saving lives, you know, when someone comes out of it, you just feel elated, eh? It's like, whew, did a good job, eh? Shake the guy's hand, he smiles at you, eh? Or sometimes he'll just insult you. Yeah, so that cost 30 bucks, you just blew 30 bucks off me. But I know that's him in that moment, because I know next day he'll come over and thank me for, you know, for helping him out, eh? And that's the best. Someone just says thank you.
The biggest challenge is the stigma. People have this idea that any addict is a useless piece of poo-poo, and that's just not true.
When I go out on the street, I see people for people. Just trying my best to be a human being. That's it. There's no big glamorous thing for me. It's just, you know, I want to help people because people help me.
Peers have patience, understanding, and drive. Wanting to help, the blessing is keeping people alive. We carry much on our shoulders, out there on the scene, on call day and night. Wanting no more lives lost in this harsh war. Decriminalizing and safe supply would make it right.
Thank you guys. So that was our video. And I just wanted to highlight a few other resources as well. So if you're curious to know more about the Peer2Peer project and the ROSE model, that's the first link there. We also developed an anti-stigma campaign. It consists of 5 videos and corresponding facilitator guides on real-life experiences of peer workers and the stigma they face in their day-to-day lives. And finally, we have just completed our peer worker leadership training consisting of 5 modules. And these are really good skills that are available for peer workers to take online. So thank you so much for listening. Sorry for all the tech issues that we've been having. And yeah, thanks again for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Zara, Sophie, and Tracy for the great presentation and for sharing resources. There's another handout by the Peer2Peer Project that you can download. It's their practice manual. So I really encourage you to go ahead and do that at any point during the broadcast. We're now going to open the floor to the Q&A.
Hi guys, I'm Lene. I am the one who introduced myself earlier. I just wanted to say there is tons of appreciation for both groups within the question and answer area, so much appreciation. Do we want to have cams turned on for both groups, or how do we want to do this?
Yes, that would be great.
Awesome. Okay, I got a list of kind of separate as well as combined ones. Hi, Beep.
Yeah.
So maybe just go in order might be the best option. Or bounce back and forth. How about we do that? So, Beep specifically, how many people have badges within the group? Tennis Oldenburg is asking.
How many people have badges?
Badges
For like the ID card?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, we have had them made a number of times, and some of them get lost. Usually when we make them, we make several copies of each one. And we also have ones for people do casual. We have like casual ones that don't have their picture on it, but that they have. So the group really grew a lot over COVID, just because it was one of the only things that was going. And we didn't really do a lot of new badges for people over COVID because we're complicated. So
You made them so
Yeah, and we were just talking about in our last meeting about making new badges and getting everybody up to date. So we'll have to put that, for that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to believe there's been some misuse.
Yes, there have been. People have gotten a hold of them and have been representing themselves as part of BEAP. So that has been some things to kind of figure out too.
Yeah, that's why we got to try to change it so that can't happen anymore.
Excellent, thank you. And peer-to-peer, from Robert Lambert, first, your work is absolutely awesome. Congrats to all involved. What were the key challenges you faced in this project and what was helpful in overcoming them?
Tracy, do you want to go first?
No, you can. I'm thinking.
Yeah. One of the challenges from my perspective was having a very short period of time with our funding and trying to manage to do everything within that short period of time. Model is fairly Shoot. There's some audio feedback coming.
There we go. That's corrected.
Okay, good. So yeah, as you can see, the ROSE model is fairly large and there are so many little components to it. And trying to do that within 2 years, which was the initial funding period that we had, was very difficult. And then we got an additional year to do all the work. So we've now managed to implement everything. But again, like you're trying to develop an intervention, first identify the needs, develop an intervention, implement it, and also evaluate it within 3 years, which is a long shot. And I think that's been one of the challenges, our battle with time.
Anybody else?
Sophie, Tracy, anything you want to add?
I think that was one of the major challenges myself, was the time period. We didn't have enough time to do everything that we wanted to do, right? It's good that we got funded again temporarily, whatever, but it's still very rushed, right? That's the main problem.
And
I'm going to say one of the biggest problems in my view was COVID and not being able to meet in person and having to use Zoom all the time, which is horribly non-accessible. So I feel like we would have been able to get a lot more done without the pandemic, but we still managed to do a lot. Yeah.
That's incredible, and you are totally correct. The Zoom issue is huge with you. So, moving on, next question to Beep. I'm sorry if I pronounced this incorrectly. Camellia Abadi is wondering about bank accounts and how you guys are able to pay peer stipends can you send them to a mailing address? Are people required to have bank accounts? And I think this might actually be a question for all groups involved, because peer payments are so often lost in translation. So maybe BEAP can answer first, and then we can move on to peer-to-peer.
Yeah, but simply we don't require a bank account and stuff like that. It's just people come, they do the meeting, so it's usually always cash. Everybody loves cash. You know, why get a check and then you got to go hunt down a bank with all this? You know, you don't have any ID or your hair's too long. You know, you got to, something you can't cash a check. You know, walking around with this piece of paper. That's why we pay cash.
We pay out a lot of cash every week, like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So
You'll have to give us some tips on how to do that. And what about peer-to-peer? How do you guys pay in cash or check or stipends?
Yeah, we have three ways. If we are meeting in person, then it's usually cash. As Sophie mentioned, one of the challenges has been COVID, and it's been a lot of virtual meetings. What we do then is work with the organizations that the peers are working for. So because we have two pilot organizations, Solid Outreach and RainCity Housing, we work with the organizational managers there so that they pay their peer workers through their regular stipends, and then we reimburse them through our project. And then the third way to do it is email transfers for those that do have bank accounts, or for friends who have bank accounts that they trust. We just email transfer it to their friend or to themselves, and they get the money that way.
Love it. This one is for peer-to-peer from David McAleese. Again, apologies if I mispronounce any names. What kind of debriefing systems are in place for the trauma that having to be a first responder role are in place or considered within the peer positions?
Tracy, you go for that.
Okay, can you just, I can hear, but not very well. Can you reread the question again?
For sure.
I got bits and pieces of it.
Simplified, what kind of debriefing systems are in place for some of the trauma that first responding peers may face?
First of all, one of the ones that's the best, like I think anyway, it works for me, is we all have our we've all taken training and had a debrief and counsel each other. So lots of times just talking to one of them, because it doesn't go anywhere else and they can relate. They understand, right? Just talking to the other peers and relating with the other peers helps immensely. So that's one of the first things that I usually go for. Any more, Zara?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then that's one of the strategies we had within the ROSE model is to create a peer supporter and systems navigation role. We tried that at one of the pilot sites, and we have recently completed an evaluation of that. It's going fabulous. So what they have done basically is to hire a peer supporter. So this is a person with lived experience with the sole job of doing this peer debriefing. So if somebody needs any help, they need to unwind after a stressful day, their first go-to person would be that peer supporter. And Mike Knott, who wasn't able to make it today, he's actually the peer supporter for Solid. So that's how it works, is that there's somebody in place at the organization to do that. And it's been a huge help for most of the peer workers.
Excellent. BEAP, let me see. We got so many questions coming in. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep track of them all as they're coming in. BEAP, amazing presentation. Question, what are the sources of funding from the street community resources, honorarium, meeting spaces, etc.? Are these funding sources constant? And this is from Cian Lewis.
They are definitely not constant, but we've tried. At times we've had to kind of shut down crews a little bit just because we don't have money, but we keep money for our meetings so that we continue to meet on a weekly basis every Wednesday to keep the group together, so that if opportunities do come. Thankfully, over the last 3 years, we rarely had to do that. For some time, we did have the Downtown Business Association who was giving us some money, but when COVID hit, all the businesses were hit really bad financially, and so that became an issue. Thankfully, with some of the stuff with the Ministry of Transportation, we've got some money from them for specific cleanups. We've got some money from the health authority when they were trying to save the hub that had the overdose prevention site in it, because it was really in danger of being lost, just because of what was going around in the community and the complaints from the business. So it's kind of when there's a need, but I think more and more people are seeing it, and so some of our funding, we've been approached about it rather than us have to go running after it, which is much nicer for me.
Yeah, it's awesome, man.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry if I can't get to everybody's questions, like they are coming in so fast, I'm having to try and like keep track of them. So here's a really interesting one that I actually would like to ask both, even though it is directed to peer-to-peer. This is from Tanya Evans. Are peer support workers abstinent? I noticed in the video that the woman identifies as a functioning addict.
In BC, and we're different from other provinces, is that peer workers here are defined as people with lived and living experience, or, right? So a lot of the peer workers are actually functional drug addicts. I mean, that's not the word we should use, but that's the word that was used in the video. And so, yeah, a lot of people are not abstinent. And that's something that we would really like to advocate for across Canada, because people who are using substances doesn't mean that they're not able to work in their roles. In fact, they are the experts in this area of work, and we should recognize that, and we should find employment opportunities for them.
Yeah, that's the same with the BEAP. You know, there's no abstinence needed. You know, we're all, you know, been doing it for years, and you know, we're pretty much the pros on it. So I mean, you know, we can tell if you're worth too if we're not, right? A lot of people have to use it just to get mobility, right? Because it put in a position where they can't get legal stuff, they have to, you know, apparently, I've heard they have to go to the illicit. But, you know, they've been doing it for years, so they're, you know, they know what they're doing. And I mean, we just there. If they have to be high to be there, so be it.
Absolutely. This one is also for both of you. Maybe Beat can answer first. This is a twofer. One is, and this is from Emily Holmes. One is, do you do CPP and EI deductions when you're handing out honorariums? And then as well, what solutions do you use when managing connection and contact issues when peers don't have phones? So both are very common, frequently asked questions. So maybe Beat can answer first, and then peer-to-peer can go.
So for our honorariums, we have an exemption from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, which is as therapeutic volunteering. And so we do come up with a form for which our representative from the ministry helped us come up with. She allows us to be a contact. So if there's any issues that people have, they can just go directly to her, and she can work out anything that happens. So it's a beautiful process, and yeah, we didn't start that way, but I was so nervous. But yeah,
we got our BC covered.
Yes.
A lot of people aren't aware of the exemption form, so I'm very glad that you have brought those up, and that may be some information we're sharing on our education models as we move forward. So, and what about peer-to-peer? What support, or do you guys do exemptions, and how do you deal with the lack of tablets, phones, all of that with peers?
Yeah, we also have an exemption, and both the organizations we work with, Solid and RainCity, they also have that exemption, so they're able to pay peer workers without having to do those deductions. And regarding contacting people who don't have phones, we usually go through their organizations again, and that's the best way to reach them. Like if we reach out to Tracy's manager at RainCity, if we're not able to get a hold of Tracy, then she'll be able to get a hold of Tracy, and that's how we connect.
And just to talk about phones with us, we have our certain budget, and the stewarding committee just makes decision on how we spend it. Sometimes they make decisions that this person needs a phone, so they get this person a phone, or whatever. So there's no set like, this is how we do it. Besides, what's the investment?
Yeah, we pay for the phone for them, and then they just.
And sorry, just to add to that as well, one of the things when we were doing our, needs assessment initially, peer workers did mention that having access to phones was something that they would like as part of the support. And by the time we got to the implementation phase, both Solid and RainCity had already implemented that within their organizations, is that there is a cell phone for use when you're on shift. And so peer workers, can actually reach us during their shift as well.
That is incredible. This is from Jesse Knight and goes to both organizations, so maybe Peer2Peer could answer first. How do you navigate relationships with police and bylaw?
Tracy, this one's totally for you.
How do we handle situations with them? Well, since we've gotten our first aid and everything else, it's a little bit easier because I can, if I'm in an overdose situation and they tell me to leave, I tell them no. Simple. Like they're not very good with us here. This is a town full of hate, and they're really harsh with us. But for some reason, with the peers now, they're getting a little bit better. Bylaw has actually started to step up, and I run a group in a society in Maple Ridge, and they've actually taken initiative to come and talk to us and try to work together. So it's getting better, but how to handle it is we just have to stand up to them because that's just the way they are here.
That's the way they are here too. We had a big problem with them. They were in the beginning waiting for the person's we eat and then they come in and clean everything out. But since then, started to smooth things over, and we actually have a relatively good relationship with the city and with the
bylaws.
That's it, yeah. And it took a while, and we had the initiative a few times. We've actually got a good relationship with them now.
Well, as you may know, the Drug War Survivors took the city to court to BC Supreme Court and won the right for people to camp in parks and a lot more, which has not been actually carried out.
And just the city and the police, we want to be somewhere.
One thing that BEAP is allowed is us to have like another arm of DWS where that's more collaborative and confrontational, and the really appreciate having those two things in existence.
We have we'll take you there.
That's awesome. Sorry, there was a little bit of audio interference. I'm still trying to answer questions as they're coming in. Holy moly, we're getting a lot. Amelia, how much time do we have left? 10 minutes?
We have another 5 minutes for questions, 5 minutes or so.
5 minutes. Okay. David McAleese is asking, are there any considerations for transitioning peers into full-time employment? A question most likely for larger orgs like RainCity that have policies based around hiring on experience.
Tracy, any insights on that?
Uh-oh.
Are you muted?
Yeah.
Can't hear you. Sophie, I think your phone is muted, so we can't hear either of you.
Can't hear you either. Yeah.
Well,
Okay, now we've been enabled to speak. Okay, now we're able to speak.
We're able to speak now?
Yeah.
Okay. In my town example, yes, we are. There's certain, it's starting to pick up that way. I personally work in the welfare office in my town, and there's a bunch of us that do. And we actually got offered to apply for a position behind the counter. So yeah, there is options, right, where they're trying to bring us in to other places. So I thought that was a really good opportunity. But that's an example of, yes, it is. It's not a lot of it yet, but it's getting better.
Good. We have in COVID, there was some outbreaks and things, and like staff at some of the shelters were not available, and we were able to get some funding to have 3 full-time folks that do this project called API, which is the Autonomous Accountable Peer Initiative. And so they've been able to come alongside other organizations, support the folks that they're working with, but while being autonomous. So they're overseen by Drug War Survivors, but working with, and that we've run into a lot of those things like, oh, are people allowed to use drugs when they're doing this? And so we've been able to challenge a lot of things, and it's been really positive. But it comes with you know, when there's an opportunity. There's been no like funding for this.
I appreciate that. Do we have time for one more question, Amelia?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, this is for both organizations. Do you get pushback from organizations because the peers actively use? And this is a question for both orgs.
Wait, I missed the last bit. Because the peers?
Do you get pushback because the peers actively use, say, from local, just not in my backyarders or anybody really?
Well, what we've done is we've developed contracts with our pilot organizations, which talk about basically the rules of using at work. And mostly organizations agree that it's okay for peer workers to use during their breaks, as long as they feel they're fit for duty.
Yeah.
And so basically any work is basically related to fitness for duty rather than using or not using.
Intoxication versus use.
And most of the time they ask us to be very discreet about it.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Absolutely. And what about?
Yeah, it's I think the group we trust the group to look after each other in it, and there absolutely have been times when people are saying, you know, come to me at least and say, hey, that person's just taken a honorarium and is just not doing anything.
Yeah.
And again, we just turn it back to the group and have the group figure it out. Yeah. With other things, there's we've got people as safe when they're working somewhere, so they can put, if they have stuff that they want to put there, they can put it there.
And I think that there's also been, you know, a lot of work done with other partnering organizations that maybe don't come from like the same viewpoint as we do, right? To educate folks on, you know, like well enough to work, right? Versus, you know, being high because they're using substances. So that's, I think, the biggest thing that we have to do with our communities is to educate folks to, you know, see the value in individuals who are using substances still being able to participate in active work. So
perfect. I want to thank you all, as somebody who is still an active substance user, for the work that you do, the autonomy that you provide to people who use drugs or have mental illnesses, the willingness to work together with your community and each other, other organizations, and within your organizations. Like, it's just incredible to hear. So very much appreciation.
You are the person, not the drugs.
Yeah.
Perfect. Maybe I'll pass it back on to Amelia.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lene. Okay. Thank you to everybody who attended and to our presenters. We had an incredible amount of questions and engagement. We're so thankful for that. We want to keep the conversation going, and we've already thought of a way to do that. So before we all sign off and resume our days, I want to invite you all to join our ODPrep learning community. We've created an online space to continue this conversation and start others, connect with one another, share resources, and continue to work together to improve overdose and poisoning response and prevention efforts across the province. The URL is up on the slide there, and you can access it from the PDF handout of the PowerPoint slides. All you have to do to join is click the link, enter in a few details, and then you're in our online space. We really do hope to see you there. Thanks again for taking part in today's webinar. Please take care of yourselves and stay safe.